Hello, everybody. Today I am speaking with Brian Anderson, a JLG selection from March of 2025 for his title, Sophie, Frankenstein's Hound. Welcome, Brian. Thanks for talking with us today. So I wanted to get just a little bit of information from you about what is your inspiration for Sophie? So tell us a little bit about that inspiration.
If you can see on the screen, she's right there. And yeah, I started Sophie as a newspaper comic strip probably almost 20 years ago now. And I was working on two other strips I didn't like and took a break to go play with Sophie, who was a puppy at the time. And the entire idea came to me. I made up the baby, and a little while later, I had my own son. So it became kind of like a funny slice of life documentary. And then just a couple of years ago, I decided to move Sophie from newspapers into full-blown, full-color graphic novels and let the characters just have fun on a bigger playground.
Um, So the most recent Sophie, which of course was our March 2025 selection, combines Sophie the dog, which a beloved character, right? Kids love dogs. They never get sick of dogs. So you combine Sophie with Frankenstein. So tell me a little bit about how that came
Yeah, it was a
about.
combination of two. Oh, yeah. Combination of two things. The strip, there's a big Calvin and Hobbes influence with the dogs and the cats and the baby having their own imagination adventures. And I've always loved Young Frankenstein as my favorite comedy. I've always wanted to work that into the story. And I also needed a way, I put my foster dogs as they come through the house. They all get their story told. And it can
Oh.
be tricky because a lot of them have issues and it's horrible stories sometimes.
Mhm.
How do you get the message across through the characters and bring them into the book? So with Annie, she was a big Staffordshire Terrier, probably about 95 pounds. And how do you deal with telling people it's not about how they look? It's,
Mhm.
you got to deal, each dog is an individual. You can't base it on their looks. That's not going to tell you anything. So
Mhm.
Annie's the perfect case for that. And the Frankenstein motif was kind of the perfect way to show that story instead of preaching and telling and just have, and make it funny, but it comes across. You
Yeah.
understand who Annie is through her character.
Oh, that's so cool. I love the representation of your foster, animals being represented in the story. That's just such a cool way of remembrance of, because I know fostering, right? It's transitional. That's such a cool remembrance. I'm sure that your son appreciates that or will appreciate that as he gets
Hmm.
older, that remembrance. So also talk about graphic novels, right? So graphic novels, huge medium right now. Kids consume graphic novels just voraciously. I know I have an 8-year-old who cannot get enough graphic novels. She flies through them. So tell us why Sophie deserves that part of a collection in a library, and like what about it will really draw kids in. So kind of give us that reader's advisory pitch of why Sophie's such a great character and why, so beloved in the collection.
I think there's a lot of reasons. One was, starting off as a newspaper strip, I noticed I had a lot of older readers who read the newspaper, but
Mhm.
I got a lot of fan mail from kids, and they had never even seen a newspaper. So I was like, where are they reading this? So their grandparents were showing it to them. Their parents were reading it with them. Teachers were using it in the classroom to teach language and writing. And then when I would put out the ebooks, the kids would find the ebooks. So I realized, why not do what I always wanted? Bring Sophie, she's, contained in that little tiny newspaper strip and just let them
Mhm.
have fun in a graphic novel. I'm obviously a huge comic book fan. I've read them my entire life, still do. But I think it was important for me to bring what made the strip successful was that it was for the whole family. Kids read it with
Mhm.
their parents, grandparents read it with their grandchildren. There was humor in there for everybody,
Mhm.
kind of like Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts. So everybody's kind of reading it and getting something different out of it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, the graphic novels gave me a chance to expand on the stories, tell longer stories, let the characters have an arc and grow.
Mhm.
Sophie kind of grows along with the readers, in her
Mhm.
development. Each book follows a stage of that.
Yeah.
So it's not just random silliness. So yeah, there's a lot of pop culture reference in there, stuff,
Mhm.
for the parents, stuff like that. So it's my goal was to make something that the you didn't just buy a book and hand it to your kid, here, go read this. Is this the latest
Mhm.
thing? Go read it. I don't want to read that. I wanted something that the parents wanted to read with the kids. They would read, they could share it. Just like the newspaper, the comic strip, they had something they could share.
Yeah.
I think that's really important with kids. When you have a book you're reading and your parents like it, now you have this common ground you can talk about, and it just encourages more reading.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
just a kids thing, and those are mom's and dad's books. Those are my books.
Hmm.
It's the whole family's book, and I call it the Bluey effect.
Hmm.
Everybody likes to watch Bluey with it. Yeah,
Yep.
it's
Yep.
that was always my goal with the comic strip, and now with the graphic novels, is to have something for everybody. They do it together. They read it together.
I love that. That's so interesting that that's kind of where that was rooted. So I'm sure there's going to be some inquiring minds for folks that listen to this. Where can we find the comic strip?
It's I it was not to get too into detail, but that industry, there was a lot of I came to a pivotal point in that
Hmm.
syndication.
Hmm.
I'd always wanted to expand, and there was some stuff going on that I had to make a choice. I could either fight them legally and get destroyed. I
Right.
didn't couldn't do that, or I could quit the strip. And I didn't like either option, so I
Okay.
created a third option.
Yeah.
So the strip is still out there, it's still running,
Hmm.
and more than likely, once these books are, number three's coming, number four's coming,
Hmm.
I'm gonna start the strip back up again now
Oh,
in the same vision as the books, so
okay.
that and it'll be available on my site and elsewhere, so
Hmm.
that kids and parents they can visit the characters in between books.
Hmm.
But
Love that.
they won't be the tiny little constantly shrinking newspaper strips. I'll do them as a full page, but it'll be a way for you to have more little interactions with the characters and stuff between books. So
Okay.
I'm
Nice.
kind of, it's that thing, I teach kids this too, is, when you don't like the two options you have, create a third.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Oh, I love that. That's so cool because I think that kids today, they don't, if you say comic strip, or we talk about Garfield, right? Like that's the one that a lot of us grew up with as kids. They have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah,
They're just they know it's a cartoon or a movie or a graphic novel. So that's really
or
cool that you can
webtoon.
bring that back to families. Yeah, yeah. Um, Anything else you'd like to add about Sophie or any of your inspirations or?
Yeah, I think the fun part was that these are all based on my own animals. Sophie was real, all the
Mhm.
Fosters are real, the cats are real. And you'll see that at the beginning of each book, I put in a picture of my
Mhm.
real pets, and also I'll share a picture of the real Foster that's going to have a story in that particular book.
Nice.
And I think the biggest thing for me is it's a way these characters come alive over the past, 16, 17 years. And it's just a way for me to get to share them with everybody. And yeah, I'm super excited that I got the chance to do the graphic and kind of tell her Sophie's story the way I always wanted to.
Mhm.
And it's always fun when I hear from parents that they buy the books and read them first and then give them to their kids. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is hearing from kids that, they saw Sophie and they were inspired to write a comic strip about their own dog. And yeah.
Hmm. I love that. Well, thank you so much for this. Just as a reminder for all of our JLG customers, Sophie Frankenstein's Hound was in the March 2025 selection. It was in our humor category, which makes total sense. So thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you for having me.